There is a way to purify any water on this planet with two pieces of metal. No cartridge, no battery, no electricity. A 12-inch strip of copper wire and a 12-inch strip of zinc touching each other inside contaminated water. The reaction starts in seconds. Bacteria die on contact. Heavy metals drop to the bottom. Chlorine vanishes without a single chemical added. The water comes out cleaner than what flows from most American faucets. This method costs under $5 in hardware store materials. It lasts for years. It requires zero replacement parts. And the $35 billion water filter cartridge industry has spent decades making sure you never hear about it. Not because it failed, because it worked too well to sell. What cannot generate a monthly subscription cannot be allowed to exist in the public mind. What cannot be patented cannot build shareholder value. So it was buried, quietly, methodically. And today, you are going to dig it up. Subscribe now and hit the bell. This is where we crack open the vaults that Wall Street trusts and federal regulatory boards welded shut. In 1838, a Cherokee healer named Running Deer guided a group of displaced families along the northern route of the Trail of Tears through southern Tennessee. Dysentery was killing more people than the march itself. Water from every creek and river along the trail was contaminated. Soldiers drank from tin canteens and fell sick within days. Running Deer carried two things in his medicine pouch that no army surgeon understood: a coil of raw copper traded from a miner in North Carolina, and a handful of zinc ore fragments collected from a riverbed in the Smokies. He dropped both into a clay vessel filled with brown creek water. He waited until sunrise. The families who drank from his vessel survived. The soldiers who refused it did not. No one wrote this into the official record. No federal archive carries his name. But the oral tradition of the Eastern Band of Cherokee still carries the method. It was not magic. It was electrochemistry a century before anyone had a word for it. Move forward to 1863. A Confederate field hospital outside Vicksburg, Mississippi. A medic named Elias Tanner was running out of everything. No iodine, no clean bandages, no potable water for 70 wounded men. He remembered something his grandfather, a copper miner from the Appalachian foothills, had taught him. He twisted copper wire around a strip of zinc sheeting pulled from a broken ammunition crate. He dropped the twisted pair into a barrel of river water pulled from the Big Black. 8 hours later, the water was clear. 53 of 70 men survived infections that should have killed them. Tanner wrote a field report and sent it to the Surgeon General in Richmond. It was stamped received and never opened. That report sat in a storage crate in the National Archives until 1987, when a graduate student found it during unrelated research. She tried to publish a paper on it. Her funding was pulled within 6 weeks, no explanation given. Now jump to 1962, Cape Canaveral. NASA had a problem that could end the space program overnight. Astronauts in orbital capsules needed clean water for days or weeks at a time. Mechanical filters were too heavy. Chemical tablets altered water chemistry and created side effects in zero gravity. A junior engineer on the life support team proposed something the brass called primitive. Two metals in contact inside the water supply line: copper and zinc. The galvanic reaction would kill bacteria continuously, without power, without moving parts, without replacement. NASA tested it. It worked. It exceeded every filtration benchmark they had at the time. They installed it on orbital missions throughout the late 1960s and into the Skylab program. The technical documentation exists. It is buried in microfiche archives at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. A method good enough for American astronauts circling Earth at 17,000 miles per hour, but somehow not good enough for the American public buying $40 pitcher filters every quarter. That is not an accident. That is an industry protecting $35 billion. If you are still watching this, you are already more awake than 98% of the people who will scroll past this today. This video is only the surface. I have assembled everything the filtration industry, the big box stores, and those three-letter agencies in Washington have spent decades keeping out of your hands. It is all inside the complete off-grid vault. The link is in the description below. Water purification methods that pioneers and native tribes mastered centuries ago. Emergency filtration protocols that were classified during Cold War bunker programs. DIY systems tested against $200 commercial units and winning. Food preservation without refrigeration. Fire techniques the military buried. More than 10 complete, uncensored guides in one place. No filler, no fluff. The link is in the description or scan the code on your screen. But stay right here. The science behind this is about to hit you between the eyes. Here is what happens at the molecular level when copper and zinc touch inside water. This is not folklore. This is published electrochemistry. When zinc contacts water, it begins to shed electrons. Zinc sits higher on the reactivity scale than copper. Those free electrons flow from the zinc across to the copper, creating a persistent microcurrent between the two metals. This is the exact same principle that powers every battery on Earth. But here, the current does not light a bulb. It generates charged copper ions that actively hunt microorganisms. These ions penetrate bacterial cell walls. They disrupt enzyme function. They shut down reproduction. The bacteria do not adapt. They do not survive. A study published in the Journal of Health Population and Nutrition documented a 97% bacterial kill rate using copper alone in standing water within 16 hours. When you add zinc and create the galvanic pair, the process accelerates dramatically. The dual metal system is known in professional filtration as KDF, kinetic degradation fluxion. It eliminates 99% of free chlorine on contact. It captures lead, mercury, arsenic, chromium, and cadmium from the water column. It does something no plastic carbon filter on a store shelf can do. It actively kills bacteria, algae, and fungus continuously without replacement. A standard carbon cartridge lasts 2 to 6 months. A copper-zinc pair lasts 6 years with minimal maintenance. A family buying replacement cartridges at $35 every 3 months spends $840 over 6 years. A copper-zinc setup costs under $5 total. That is $5 against $840 for equal or superior performance. Those are numbers the cartridge industry prays you never calculate. Now here is what you need to do tonight. Go to any hardware store in your town. Buy 12 inches of bare copper wire 14 gauge. Buy a zinc strip or a piece of zinc sheeting roughly the same length. Total cost under $5. Cut both to 12 inches if needed. Twist them together tightly so the metals maintain firm, direct physical contact along their entire length. This contact is essential for the galvanic reaction. Place the twisted pair into any non-reactive container, glass, ceramic, stainless steel, not aluminum. Pre-filter your water source through a clean cotton cloth or bandana to remove large sediment. Pour the water into the container with the metals. Let it sit for a minimum of 4 hours. 8 hours is better. 16 hours for maximum purification. The galvanic cell works the entire time. No power, no supervision. For a backup stage, take a clean cotton sock and fill it with crushed charcoal from a hardwood fire. Pour the treated water through this improvised carbon filter. The copper-zinc pair destroys the biology. The charcoal captures remaining chemical traces. Together, this two-stage system rivals commercial filters costing 40 to 50 times more. For home use, you can scale this up. Place a 3-foot copper-zinc twisted pair inside a 5-gallon food-grade bucket. Fill with tap water. Let it sit overnight. You will have 5 gallons of water with virtually zero chlorine, zero bacterial load, and drastically reduced heavy metals by morning. Every single morning. For years. Without buying a single replacement cartridge ever again. A homesteader in eastern Kentucky has been running this exact setup for 4 years. He tested his water independently at a county lab. Bacterial count, 0. Chlorine, undetectable. Lead, below the threshold. His neighbor spends $140 a year on pitcher filters and gets comparable results at best. You cannot patent copper. It has been in the ground for 4 billion years. You cannot patent zinc. It is one of the most abundant elements on Earth. You cannot build a $35 billion subscription empire on two metals that cost $5 and last half a decade. So instead, the industry classification boards labeled copper-zinc filtration as a pesticide because it kills bacteria, a word designed to scare you away from the very thing that keeps water safe. The Water Association discourages the method. Their stated reason is extraordinary. The filtered water is too clean for their regulatory framework. Read that again. Too clean. That is not a safety concern. That is a business concern. The cartridge companies need you buying every 90 days. The big box stores need you walking those aisles. The regulatory boards funded by industry lobbyists need the current system to stay exactly where it is. A Cherokee healer knew the answer in 1838. A Confederate medic proved it in 1863. NASA trusted it in orbit in 1962. The science is published. The history is undeniable. And an entire industry would rather sell you a plastic cartridge every 60 days than admit that two metals from a hardware store do the same job for a fraction of a cent. This knowledge was never lost. It was locked in a vault. Today, that vault is open. If this video showed you something the system never wanted you to see, then subscribe and share it with someone who deserves to stop paying for what nature already provides. Every share is an act of defiance against the billion-dollar machine built on your dependence. The complete off-grid vault is in the description below, or scan the code on your screen right now. The next vault opens soon. What it contains is heavier